The following video is sponsored by InstantMaddenCoins.com. The only place to get Madden coins instantly on every console and platform is InstantMaddenCoins.com. Use code Kliquid at checkout for a 10% discount. Hey, what is going on, guys? Kliquid here, back again, bringing you guys something a little bit different on the channel today. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I finally think that I might have the opportunity to do it this year. So what I'm going through and doing is predicting literally every single NFL game before the season starts, and I'm doing it on a team-by-team basis so you guys can maybe see kind of how the whole playoff picture is going to break down and things like that. And you can kind of see what your individual team, in my opinion, is going to do this season. So what I'm actually going to do is start off with the Kansas City Chiefs. I will also be doing a New England Patriots one later this evening, so make sure you stop on back for that. But again, you can see on the screen here, we've got every single game. I've got a graphic for it. We're going to do it kind of by quarters. So quarters of the season, first 4 games, second 4, and so on and so forth. So let's get right into it, guys. The first 4 games of the Kansas City Chiefs schedule this season. You see them there up across the top of the screen. We have the New England Patriots at New England. The first game of the season will be this Thursday night on the NFL Network. Very, very exciting stuff, guys. First game of the football season. Gotta love it. And unfortunately for the Chiefs, man, this could not be a worse matchup, in my personal opinion. On the road against the defending Super Bowl champions, who, in my opinion, have only improved by adding Brandon Cooks. Yeah, granted, they did lose Julian Edelman. I get it. But Brandon Cooks is a bigger game breaker than Julian Edelman, and I think he can do a lot of the things that Edelman can. So I'm not overly concerned about that. This is a team that masks those weaknesses when they have them and certainly can accentuate their strengths. So I definitely think that New England is the favorite in this one. I don't think there's really any question about that. The Patriots, you give them a full offseason to prepare for this season, for this game. Man, this is going to be a tough one for the Chiefs on the road. So I do give them the L here in week 1, starting off 0-1. But in week 2, I do think they're going to have a little bit of a bounce back. They're at home against the Eagles. This is going to be a game where the Eagles, they have one of the better pass blocking offensive lines in football right now, maybe even the best overall pass blocking offensive line in all of football. So when you take that into consideration, in addition to the Chiefs having one of the better pass rushes, I think that's really the story of this football game. Can the Chiefs generate a pass rush, get after Carson Wentz? I think they're going to be able to, and I really think one of the important things here is that Philadelphia's run game right now just isn't very good. Yeah, they have LeGarrette Blount, but Blount isn't the guy, in my opinion, that we saw in New England overall. I think that, like I said before when we were talking about the Patriots, this is a team that they were able to get the best out of Blount and really mask his weaknesses as a player. And we haven't seen Blount do that anywhere else in his career. So I don't really think that him stepping on and being the starting running back for the Eagles is going to really start off that great. Yeah, eventually I think he's going to get kind of set into a role that's going to work for him. But I think early in the season, they're going to be making some mistakes by just putting him out there on the majority of the downs. And I think that a team like the Chiefs is going to be able to kind of, you know, key in on the fact that Blount isn't a big game breaker. And yeah, he can pick up 3-4 yards here or there, but he's not a guy that's going to break off big runs. And I think overall that's going to help those Chiefs pass rushers being able to kind of pin their ears back and get after Carson Wentz. And that could cause them to make some mistakes in the passing game as well. So I think the Chiefs definitely get the win here in week 2. Nice bounce back win for them to start them off 1-1. Then they go on the road, and they're going to have to play in Los Angeles against the Chargers. The Chiefs have won 6 straight against the Chargers, man. This is a big game to start off the year, their first division game of the year, but the Chargers have been within 1 score in 5 of those 6 losses that they've had in a row against the Chiefs. The Chargers also now have Keenan Allen back, so I think that's very helpful. They did try and improve their offensive line in the offseason. They have suffered a few injuries, but I think overall that unit's going to be a little bit more improved. This is a tough one to predict, but oddly enough, I actually like Los Angeles at home early in the season until they start suffering those inevitable injuries, which seems to always happen to them. I just really think this is a really good chance for the Chargers to start off strong, and I think that they're going to get the win here at home against the Chiefs in what should be, like I said, a pretty close and honestly difficult to predict game. Now the Chiefs in week 4 will go back home. So you see they go road, home, road, home. So they're getting kind of a mixture back and forth. A lot of times you'll see teams have those extended runs on the road or at home. The Chiefs don't really have a whole lot of those this season, which I think is going to be a good thing for them. But here in week 4, they're back at home against the Redskins. Another NFC East matchup against what is a pretty good offensive line. The Chiefs pass rushers, again, might have a tough time in this one. Trent Williams, one of the premier left tackles in the game, should be able to at least contain Justin Houston, in my opinion. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're just going to be able to shut down the entire Chiefs pass rush. This looks like an easy win at home on paper for the Chiefs, but honestly, the Redskins are going to come to play. I'm telling you, early in the season, the Redskins are a much better team typically than they are at the end of the season. I'm still going to take Kansas City, but I do expect this game to actually be fairly close. So now we'll move on to our second set of games. And again, week 5 through week 8, we're going to start it off on the road against the Texans for the Chiefs. And this is going to be a tough game. This is like an extremely important game. Two teams that are fairly similar to one another. Two of the better pass rushing teams in the league. Should be one of the more interesting defensive matchups to watch. But this one could be rough to watch as far as the offenses. Neither of these teams have many huge playmakers on the roster. Obviously, the Chiefs do have Tyreek Hill, but he isn't super consistent with that. And, you know, DeAndre Hopkins can do things on offense as well. Lamar Miller can make plays. But for the most part, these are two fairly not super explosive offenses, and I think it would be actually a lot more interesting if it was Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson playing, and maybe one of these teams will actually have one of those quarterbacks by then, but I think this early in the season, week 5, it's most likely going to be Alex Smith against Tom Savage. And I think at the end of the day, as far as that's considered, when you consider all the other things, the teams being fairly similar other than that, Alex Smith, Tom Savage. I don't love Alex Smith, but I think he's quite a bit better than Tom Savage. So I am going to give the Chiefs the win here on the road, their first road victory of the season. Unfortunately, they then have two very difficult games. They're at home in week 6 against the Steelers. This is a team that they only scored 30 points against in 2 losses in 2016, while giving up 61 points in those 2 games. I mean, the Steelers really owned the Chiefs last year. Now, granted, they were a lot closer in the home game in the playoffs when they lost 16-18. But the Steelers also added Martavis Bryant this offseason. They're getting healthier overall. And I just don't really see why this game is going to be substantially better for the Chiefs than it was in 2016. I think the Steelers are going to be a powerhouse this season, and I think that they fairly easily win this one, even though they are going to be on the road against Kansas City. I think they're probably going to win it by at least a score in this game. So yeah, difficult game there in week 6. And then in week 7, they go on the road against the Raiders. Now, the Raiders were the team that had all the hype in 2016, but people don't really remember that the Chiefs beat them fairly easily in both of the games that they played last season. Oakland actually, though, interestingly enough, started playing better down the stretch before Derek Carr got injured, of course. So I think this is going to be one of the better games of the week, and I really wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City did get the win. But at the end of the day, I just think Oakland's the team right now that looks like they've just got everything going for them. I mean, they've got a good pass rush. Their defense, granted, it has some holes, certainly. They're not a great defense, but I would say that their offense is one of the better in the league right now, and it's going to be difficult for Kansas City to keep up with scoring against the Raiders, in my opinion, especially when you consider that they're going on the road to play Oakland. I mean, that's a difficult matchup as it is, and especially when you consider that Oakland is looking as hot as they are. Man, I don't know. I don't know how Kansas City is going to get the win here. So I've got Oakland in this one. Again, I would not be surprised if Kansas City did pull it out, but it is in Oakland, and Oakland tends to play quite a bit better at home than they do on the road. Now, in week 8, Kansas City has another important divisional matchup here, the third of the season against the Broncos this time, and they're at home for this one, so I think that's going to be a big advantage for Kansas City. Kansas City has completely swept their division in 2016, so I think, once again, this is going to be a difficult game for a team like Denver that's just, in my opinion, headed in the wrong direction, especially at quarterback. Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch have been battling it out in training camp, but neither guy has looked particularly good. It does look like they're going to go with Trevor Siemian to start the season, but I mean, the Broncos even re-signed Brock Osweiler this week. It's that bad. I mean, this is a tough-looking quarterback situation. They do not look very good right now, and I don't really see why this game is going to be much different than it was in 2016 when Kansas City smashed Denver at home 33-10. I think the Chiefs are going to win this one pretty easily again at Arrowhead. I don't really see a whole lot of reason to think that Denver has a great shot in this one. Yeah, their defense is very good, and they can get after the quarterback, but on offense, man, they are going to struggle this season. So there you go, 4-4 after the first 8 games. Not really a whole lot of excitement here to start the season, but the second half of the season is going to be interesting. We've got the Dallas Cowboys here in Week 9. And with the Cowboys, they're going to have Ezekiel Elliott for sure back on the field at this point. And that really, I think, is going to help reinvigorate the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys might start off struggling this season, but when they get Zeke back, man, this could be a pretty interesting team down the stretch. Big matchup here is going to be Dallas's offensive line against Kansas City's pass rush, of course. Assuming it's still Alex Smith at quarterback, in my opinion, this is going to be a fairly low-scoring game, but I do think Dallas is going to win this one at home. It could be difficult for the Cowboys if Alex Smith is, again, still at quarterback, because I think Smith is the kind of guy that just doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. And in my opinion, Dallas is probably going to need him or somebody on the team to make a mistake in order for them to get the win here. But being that it is in Dallas, Dallas having Ezekiel Elliott back, that great offensive line, I think they're just going to barely edge Kansas City out here as Kansas City heads into the bye week, actually down 1 game on the season in terms of record. So that's going to be an important thing as they step out of the bye week in Week 11, heading again on the road to an NFC East opponent, the New York Giants. Now, the Giants are going to be looking for a pretty important victory here, but unfortunately, this is going to be their 6th straight game against a 2016 playoff team. Just look at that record, look at that schedule. I mean, that is nasty, guys. That is very, very difficult. They're going to be coming off a bye week in Week 10, of course, which gives them a fairly decent chance in this one. But in my opinion, the Giants' firepower is just going to be too difficult for them. This is a team that's just full of playmakers on offense. Yeah, the Chiefs do have some good guys on defense to match up with it, but they're going to have to force turnovers in this game to have a real shot. Of course, Eli Manning is prone to turn the ball over, but I still think that I'm going to go with the Giants at home in this game. That means that the Chiefs will then be 2 games under 500 at this point in the season. They've got to make some big wins down the stretch, and I think it's going to start here in Week 12 against the Bills. After an extremely difficult run, like I said, 6 straight playoff opponents, the Chiefs are finally going to get a break in this one. If Buffalo isn't in full-on tank mode at this point, or at the start of the season, I think that they will be by this point. I don't think there's a whole lot of question about that, to be honest with you. In my opinion, this is going to be a fairly easy victory at home for the Chiefs, and they're going to head into the final stretch, the final 5 games of the season at a 5-6 record. And again, they've got some pretty interesting games here coming down the stretch. Of course, the 3 divisional opponents still remaining, but in Week 13, they get another break, in my opinion, as they head on the road to play the Jets. Much like the Bills, I think they're going to be in full-on tank mode. This is going to be 2 straight back-to-back games against bad teams, in my personal opinion, among the worst teams overall in the NFL this season. And honestly, the Jets might be the worst team. So again, I think that this is going to be a pretty easy victory for the Chiefs. Yeah, they're going to be on the road, but still, the Jets are pretty terrible, and they really haven't done a great job of defending their home field over the past couple of seasons anyway, so I'm not overly concerned about this one for the Chiefs. Now, in Week 14, this is where Chiefs fans might get mad at me. Yeah, I predicted earlier in the season that the Raiders were going to actually win the game at home against the Chiefs, so you would think maybe that I would have the Chiefs winning their home game against the Raiders, but I don't. If things go as I think they will, Oakland is going to be in line to win this division with just a win or 2 down the stretch. Yeah, the Chiefs, I think, are going to be within striking distance of the playoffs, but this is a tough game against a very good team. And if the Raiders start to reel off some wins and get some momentum going, like I think that they're going to around this point in the season, I think it's going to be quite difficult for a team like the Chiefs to overcome that. They just do not have the offensive firepower to keep up with a team like Oakland, who just consistently is able to move the ball through the air and get after the quarterback with that pass rush. Again, their defensive line, or their pass rushers, excuse me, are among the better ones in the league, especially Khalil Mack. And Alex Smith, when he's under pressure, is not that great. So I do think that the Raiders are going to get the win here. Again, I understand Chiefs fans, please don't blow me up. I get it. The Chiefs did sweep them, and they've won, I think, 6 straight against Oakland. I think that changes this season, however. But that means down the stretch, Kansas City is going to have to get things done. They're going to be 6-7 at that point. But in Week 15, as you see there on the schedule, I think that they are going to be able to get things done at home against the Chargers. This begins that clutch stretch that the Chiefs always seem to have down the stretch. After taking a loss on the road against the Chargers back in Week 3, I think the Chiefs are going to bounce back and win this one at home. The Chargers are a team that always is able to keep things fairly competitive, but unfortunately, they're also a team that, for whatever reason, is always suffering injuries down the stretch. I think Phillip Rivers is going to be able to keep this one close, but Kansas City needs this win to even have a chance at the playoffs. I think they get it. I think they get it fairly convincingly. And yeah, so Kansas City then will move to 7-7 as they head into Week 16 against the Dolphins. And for some reason, a lot of people are still, from what I've seen, assuming that the Dolphins are going to be a playoff team this year. I do not see it. I mean, they were a playoff team in 2016. I get it, but did it feel like they were a playoff team? Did they look like a playoff team? Did they have any chance of really competing for a Super Bowl? Not in my opinion. So I think, again, Kansas City is the more balanced overall roster. They're going to be going up against Jay Cutler at quarterback if he's still in at quarterback at this point in the season. And if he is, this game could get bad. I mean, yeah, the Dolphins' offensive line, they do a fairly decent job, but the Chiefs pass rush, if they can get after Jay Cutler, we could be talking about one of those classic Jay Cutler 4 INT, 5 INT games. So I think that the Chiefs fairly easily win this one as well at home against the Dolphins, and that sets up an important Week 17 where they're going to be 8-7 heading into that final game in playoff contention, but they do need the victory at Denver, and I think they get it done. Again, this is going to be one of those games where I think Denver's out of the playoff race at this point, and it's going to be a big, big victory for the Chiefs if they're able to close out the season here with the win. That'll mean 5 straight wins for Kansas City against Denver, which is certainly a big turnaround for how they performed against the Peyton Manning-era Broncos. But I think this is a completely different Broncos roster at this point. They just have nothing going at quarterback. Again, defensively, they're still pretty good, which does give them a chance in any game. But I think overall, you've got to look at the Chiefs as the better overall roster at this point in the team's franchises. So there you have it, guys. My prediction for the Kansas City Chiefs, 9-7. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to be questioning why I don't have them doing better than this, and I might be underselling the Chiefs just a little bit, but honestly, I don't see them as being a huge powerhouse in the AFC this season. I think there's basically 1 or 2 powerhouses in the AFC. I think you've basically got the Steelers, and then you've also got the Patriots. And other than that, my opinion is that all these other teams are just kind of filling out the rest of the bracket. I don't think that really any of them has a great chance of representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, one of them will have the chance of doing so, but in my opinion, Kansas City is just not a great bet to beat either the Steelers or the Patriots. And you see on their record, I do have them losing to both of those teams in the regular season. So it's going to be difficult for them, but they lack really, honestly, the consistent offensive output, I guess, to truly be an elite team at this point. Defensively, they're very good, and they do have guys like Kareem Hunt at running back. They've got Tyreek Hill at wide receiver, some good players as far as making big plays, but that consistency just has not been there for them in making big plays in the Andy Reid era, and I don't see that necessarily changing this year. Patrick Mahomes is knocking on the door to take over as the starter, but Andy Reid is one of those coaches, an old school kind of guy who's just super loyal to his players. And my personal opinion is I think Alex Smith will remain the starter at least as long as the team is in the playoff hunt. And I honestly expect that to be all season. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see Patrick Mahomes come in much this season, maybe at the end of a couple games or something, but I don't expect him to take over as the Chiefs starter or anything like that. And I think that's kind of lead to them being just a slightly above 500 team this season, like for the most part that they have been under the Andy Reid era and with Alex Smith at quarterback. So there you have it, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this. If you did, make sure that you drop a like on it. Again, I will be doing one of these for each and every NFL team, so make sure you stop on back for that. I'll be doing them throughout the week, so make sure you come back for it. Again, I wanted to do the first one here with the Chiefs, and then we'll do the Patriots because they're the first game of the season. But I will, again, be going through the other teams as we go on throughout the week. So thanks again, guys. Drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.